Wolfman, made back in 1941 and directed by George Waggner. This is a continuation of my reviews of all the classic horror movies from the Universal Monsters box set that I did start last year during the month of October, but I only got around to reviewing the two, and that was Phantom of the Opera and The Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I'm continuing those reviews this year with The Wolfman. Lon Chaney Jr. stars as Larry Talbot, or the Wolfman, and I really dug his performance in this. I think he did a really good job at portraying this character or characters. And through his performance, as a viewer, I ended up feeling very sympathetic towards the character. And a lot of that is down to Lon Chaney's performance. There's a certain cockiness and confidence to the character that he sort of portrays, as well as a certain amount of vulnerability. And he balances all these different characteristics very, very well. And it shows in his performance. And as a result, you do end up feeling very sympathetic towards the character, as well as the fact that he shows this certain amount of cockiness and confidence, and perhaps a little bit of arrogance as well. So you can see he is vulnerable as a character, and you do end up feeling sympathetic towards this character, and you really need to in a story like this. So the film starts off with Larry returning to Wales to see his father after the death of his brother, and Larry and his father have this very sort of estranged relationship, very sort of distant, and it's the death of Larry's brother that have sort of brought them back together again. And there's more to this relationship than sort of meets the eye, but for me the film didn't really delve deep enough into that relationship, which I wanted them to. I wanted them to explore that a little bit more, but you could tell there was this estranged relationship between the both of them. But the father is played brilliantly by Claude Rains. Claude Rains was also the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera from 1943, which is also in this collection. I reviewed it last October. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link below. But yet again, he does a very, very good job in this as Larry's father, Sir John Talbot. So while back home, he ends up falling for a very attractive shopkeeper called Gwen, and then eventually, you'll probably guess what happens, he gets bitten and he turns into the Wolfman. Now, the script in this film was very smart and very clever. I really liked the script. There were some really good lines in this film that really stood out, some really memorable lines as well. And what I liked about the script is it was their way of trying to insert some sort of realism into this film and make it a lot more realistic and grounded. You could see they were really trying to ground this film. And give it a sense of realism and make it feel very sort of realistic. And that really does show within the script. And it's through the script that they try to give a psychological reasoning, you could say, to the myths like, the werewolf or, the Wolfman, and they try to give it a psychological reason. And I'll give an example of one of the lines, and one of the lines is, yes, but like most legends, it must have some basis in fact. It's probably an ancient explanation of the dual personalities in each of us. And I really like that line, and there's a lot of lines like that in this film, but that's one example of what they were trying to do with this film. They were really trying to ground this film, and it was very clever, very smart. There's also another line that's said, and these lines are exchanged between two characters. It's Larry Talbot and a doctor, and Larry asks the doctor, "Do you believe in werewolves, doctor?" And the doctor replies, "I believe in a man lost in the mazes of his own mind may imagine anything." And again, it's another line that I really liked. And for me, it was an attempt at sort of exploring the human mind and psychologically and that sort of darker side of the mind. And in a way, the animal side of the mind. And the fact that we've all got that sort of other side. We've got that darker side hidden deep within the mind. And I just like that they sort of touched on it. They didn't explore it quite as much as I wanted them to. But a lot of it is expressed through the script, and I liked it. It did the job, because it did. For me, watching this film, I didn't expect it to be as sort of grounded as it was, and they did a really good job of that. And it's not just with the script either, and I'll go into those in a moment, but I just want to go back to the script a little bit, and that is that line again. A man lost in the mazes of his own mind may imagine anything. And what that line sort of did for me, and what I thought the film was sort of touching on but didn't really explore that much. It could have gone a little bit deeper into it, but it didn't. And that was, is Larry Talbot, who was sort of bitten by a wolf, is he actually turning into a wolf, or is he just imagining it? And I really liked that. And my only gripe is I wish the film explored it a little bit more. And from what I believe, from what I've seen or read somewhere, I'm sure one of the original scripts for this movie did actually explore that quite a bit more, and the film was actually more focused on that idea of Larry. Is Larry actually imagining this? Is it actually real? Is it actually happening? But they sort of deviated away from that. But I like the fact that there's elements of that in this movie, and it gets you thinking. And I didn't realise this film was going to do that to me, but it does. It really gets you thinking, and you're thinking, perhaps he is imagining it. Perhaps it's that side of his mind where he's sort of like, he has got like his dual personality maybe. And I really liked that. So another thing that I really liked about this film that I thought helped give this film that sort of groundedness and realism was the atmosphere that was created. And it was created by different aspects, one of those being the soundtrack. Now, the soundtrack really did give this film a character and identity, and it helped create the atmosphere, especially during the scenes in the woods. I really dug the soundtrack in this film, and I believe it was composed by 3 composers, I think. So yeah, this was a very atmospheric film, especially when it comes to the scenes in the woods. I really like how they shot them. You've got all the sort of fog, and the way they decided to shoot the scenes, especially when Larry is sort of battling the wolf. The way they shot that scene where you could just see Larry through the branches in the tree, I really dug it. And it does really create this sort of eerie atmosphere during those moments. It felt real. It felt eerie. And, you know, that's how you're supposed to feel when watching films like this. And back in 1941, when it comes to the Wolfman, I think they did a really good job at sort of creating that. And probably back then people were actually terrified while watching this film. But now, well, I wouldn't say so much. I couldn't say that this was actually a scary film, but quite a smart film. It gets you thinking, but it does also it has that atmosphere. The atmosphere is still attached. That creepiness and that eeriness is there on the screen. And I wouldn't really it's a horror, yeah, but I think the Wolfman, especially this version, is more of a psychological horror. And I wish they'd explored it more. I know I'm repeating myself now, but I do wish they'd explored that aspect a little bit more. One thing I noticed about Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry, the Wolfman, was his build and his height. He was definitely the right sort of structure, you know, the right sort of build for this character and the Wolfman. And when he's lurking through the woods, the way he walks, his movements, he was really, really good. I liked what he did with the wolf. He did give it this sort of, it felt like a human as well as a wolf. He combined the two sort of very well together. The way he just walks, and I really liked it. And what I sort of liked about the makeup was when he turns into the wolf, it's like, yeah, he's got hair on his face, but it wasn't too animalistic. He didn't look too much like an animal, like a wolf. It retained a lot of the human sort of element, and it was more so in the way he moved, was probably the most wolf-like. It was his movement, really, that was the most wolf-like. And when it came to the actual makeup, the physical appearance, it did retain more of that human element, and you could see his expression more. And I kind of liked that. I liked it that they went down that route with the makeup. For the time, I thought the effects were okay. A lot of it is practical, but it is going to be all practical. Most of it's all real. And yeah, looking back at it now, it looks a little bit dated, but it works. And in a way, I think, just feels a little bit more real on some of these CGI-filled horror movies today. Do you know what? I actually preferred what they done in the 1941 Wolfman than what they did in the remake a few years ago with CGI. I prefer the effects in the 1941 version than that one, than the remake. And so yeah, it just felt more real. And this was a well-made movie. For the time, it was a well-directed movie, and the direction has a lot to play when it comes to creating the atmosphere within the film. It was very well directed, and they did a good job. George Waggner did a really good job at sort of inserting that atmosphere and that realism into this film and that horror. And there's some really nice scenes, some really nice shots, and they're almost symbolic in a way. There's a church scene, and it's very eerie. And it's just one shot with Larry standing at the top for this funeral, and you've got the cross up above, and just the way that shot looked, the way it was very atmospheric, and it was just a very simple shot, but it was very nicely done. And again, the music also helped create that atmosphere, and it gives that sense of something bad is coming. And it's a simple shot, and it's a lovely shot, and there's a lot of them throughout the film, but they also say a lot as well. There's a lot of messages in these scenes, and that's what I mean by symbolic. You might have a very sort of simple shot, and it may look simple, but it's saying so much. And so in one way, I suppose, you could look at this film in two different ways. This film can actually be as deep as you want it to be, or as shallow as you want it to be. And that's what I found about the 1941 The Wolfman. You can actually just sit back, watch it, and just sort of be entertained and just take it for what it is. Or you can really get into the story, get into the characters, and sort of dig deep, delve into what they could be, the themes that they could be exploring. And a lot of that is raised within the script, as I've previously mentioned. So yeah, you could really look at this film in two ways. It can be as deep as you want it to be, or as shallow as you want it to be. And I did find that this had quite an emotional impact as well towards the end. And that is also helped by the performance from Lon Chaney, as well as the music. Didn't expect it to be quite as emotional as it was. It's quite tragic. It's quite a tragic story. And for me, I think the last question this film sort of throws at you, it did for me anyway, I don't know if it does for you guys, let me know. But the last question is, did Larry really turn into a wolf or not? Or were they just imagining it? Was it all in his mind? And because of all of the events that were going on, maybe Larry's father, John Talbot, was imagining things himself. It does, and this really could be as deep as you wanted it to be, this film. And even though it touches on those themes and doesn't explore them as deep as I wanted them to, I still liked what they did. One of the gripes I do have when it comes to The Wolfman was a few of its characters, mainly Larry's love interest, Gwen. I thought was a little bit one-dimensional, and I think the relationship between them sort of evolved very, very quickly. So yeah, I would have liked a little bit more development as well when it comes to the characters. And going back to my gripe about them exploring the themes a little bit more and delving a little bit deeper into that sort of psychological reasoning and all of that sort of stuff, like with dual personalities and that. It's all sort of touched on but not explored as much as I wanted it to be. But this is still... It was a surprise. I hadn't seen this... It's the first time for me to see this film tidy, to be honest with you. It's not one of those films I watched as a kid even. I'm watching it now... It took me by surprise. I liked it. It's quite a decent film, and I do highly recommend it. And this is the third film now in the Universal Monsters box set that I've been quite impressed with, actually. So yeah, they are my thoughts on the 1941 The Wolfman, and I will be giving it a B+. So what do you guys think of this version of The Wolfman? There are many different versions, I believe, but what do you guys think of this one? Let me know below. Is there anything you agreed or disagreed with what I say? Let me know. And what's your favourite version, maybe? Did you guys actually like the remake? Just let me know in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. The next movie that I will be viewing in my Halloween specials from the Universal Monsters collection is The Bride of Frankenstein, and I'm looking forward to it because, do you know what? I have never seen the film before, and they're remaking it. So that's actually been stalled as well in recent news. They're rewriting the script. The new Mummy film was a pile of crap. Yeah, I was quite disappointed in the remake of The Mummy. If you want to check my review out for that, I will leave a link below. But yeah, so The Bride of Frankenstein is coming up next in my Halloween specials. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you like what you see and you share the same passions, then why not hit subscribe?